Listening to this podcast right now! Do you want to hear a fucking podcast about anything and everything? Yeah. Like movies, music, television, and more?
Oh my god.
Well, you've come to the right place.
Yes.
Subscribe to Journey into Comics Network, and you get Podcastrophe, hosted by me,
Yes.
Dick. Why not throw a couple bucks to the Patreon? It's your choice. Yeah. This is a Podcastrophe.
That sounds so awesome.
The following is a Journey into Comics Network production.
To a nicer guy, it couldn't happen.
I am the man of the hour, the man with the power.
Diamonds are forever.
He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family.
And what you gonna do, Andre?
History beckons the Macho Man. Yeah.
The best there is, the best there was.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
2 words for ya. And just a man. The champ is here.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of Journey into Wrestling. It's episode 4 of season 2. And today, joining me, he's the greatest tag team partner of all time. We, as we have established already, are the five-time tag team champions. What's up, Brando?
How's it going, Nate? Good to be back here today. Better late than never, I guess, as we've had some scheduling conflicts of getting this show done due to the hectic weekend that we had, especially with you on your end with all the shows that your band Walk Among Us played this weekend.
Yeah, man, we traveled a lot. We did an hour and a half drive into Chicago and then back, and then an hour and a half drive to Lafayette and then back, and then an hour and a half drive to Chicago and then back over the course of a 3-day weekend. You and I got together for Journey into Comics 163, recorded in your car. That was fun. A different kind of experience. So it's nice to be sitting down today and actually recording a podcast where I'm in a chair, in a house, in a relaxed environment. I'm looking at your face via Skype. And today we've got a lot of good wrestling news. It's really interesting because we are in, the kind of the time of year where things are a-changing and everything is really shifting in the wrestling universe. And Brando, I don't know if you saw, but there were some interesting releases this week. And then there's also some rumors that are under, like, the undertone of these releases.
Yeah, I heard about the releases, but I don't know if I know about the rumors. I know that there were some rumors about some people who were out. I don't know if we talked about that last time, but that led to some very interesting card changes on the last pay-per-view, which we talked about a few weeks ago. And so now we have almost an entirely different pay-per-view experience to talk about for TLC.
Yeah, when we last talked, the look was going to be, hey, we've got the Shield reuniting, and this is so exciting. And then there's the Bray Wyatt versus Finn Balor match. Both those matches are severely affected. And, WWE did a great job of scrambling, I thought. That pay-per-view, TLC, which we're going to get into here in a minute, it started off with the Asuka and Emma match. And strangely enough, Asuka apparently was too much for Emma, and now she has been released from the WWE, and that was, to me, really shocking. Like, they had seemed to start to really push her, and they just pulled it out from under her,
Well, it definitely seemed like it wasn't mutual. It was a Sunday morning, and the news broke that she was released, and then she just sent out a tweet with a broken heart emoji. Yeah, definitely. I think I saw former WWE wrestler JTG said, man, can you imagine that on a Sunday morning of all things, sitting there in church, worshiping in the good Lord, trying to live your life the right way, and your phone rings, and you look down and you see that 203 area code, and you're going, what does work want from me now?
Oh, God, that would be terrifying. At Sunday morning, I mean, usually WWE is pretty good with delaying releases until the week, like until Friday. they make the releases happen on Friday. That way you kind of have the weekend to cool the crowd down from being angry at some of these releases. And then Monday when you go to Raw, hey, everyone's happy and you don't have an insanely bad reaction. It was just weird because it came out of nowhere. I feel like that the Summer Rae release, she was also released on Friday, I do believe, or Saturday. Her release is not surprising. She's been out on injury for over 6 or 8 months. Was scheduled to return in May. Still hadn't been brought back to TV. I think her last television win was at a Superstars taping back last August. So it's been a while. The other one that was kind of surprising was Darren Young. I feel like they started to kind of push him and give him the Bob Backlund angle a little bit. And then that kind of faded away, and it's just like they didn't really have anything for him. But he was a very great, he was a very talented wrestler. I'm really shocked that they haven't found a use for him. Now, the interesting thing about Darren Young's release is we only have one Nexus member left on the entire roster. Now, the Nexus, as we'll remember, was like this big come-up of the future of WWE and what's going to happen. Out of all those dudes, the only dude left is Heath Slater. Darren Young, gone. Ryback, gone. Wade Barrett, gone. Alex Riley, gone. Daniel Bryant, retired from wrestling, kind of, sort of, gives no fucks about his job, So it is interesting with the releases and how this happens. Now, the rumor, I don't know if you've heard this, Brandon, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows have maybe not so subversively displayed displeasure with their position in the company. They've been wrestling stupid gimmick matches. They haven't really had a whole lot. They had a 63-day title reign back in January. Around, I think they won them at Rumble actually, and then held them for a transitional amount of time up until Mania. Right? They were the losing team at Mania?
I think so. Yes.
Lost the belts. Yeah. Okay. So. And they lost to a super hot Hardys team, so it's like you're dropping the belts honorably to some legends in the game, But they're not happy. Carl Anderson actually removed all mention of the WWE from his Twitter. It used to say live on Monday nights on USA, Monday Night Raw or something, and the byline of his account. That has been removed. Gallows and Anderson have kind of both done that. However, they are currently on tour in the UK right now. So this could just be them playing with the fans' emotions and kind of ribbing people, to misdirect them as to what's going to come from these good brothers. But that's all I have as far as release news, Brando. Did you want to go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of TLC?
We will in just a momento. I had something to talk about that wasn't... on the sort of the docket. It was sort of on the rumor mill. I want to say there was some Impact Wrestling stuff kind of going on. As far as so since the last time we talked, they have completely they have severed ties with Jeff Jarrett,
but not Karen.
Well, Jeff Jarrett and GFW are no longer in Impact Wrestling's future. Apparently, there was going to be a merger between GFW and Impact Wrestling, and it was going to become Global Force Wrestling presents Impact Wrestling. The company was going to become Global Force Wrestling. The brand was going to be Impact. Well, that's not happening. They even had brand new Global Force Wrestling belts made to reflect the changes, but nothing was finalized on paper.
Well, if you don't got it in writing, you don't got it at all, my friend. And are they going to go back to old belts then?
I don't know. From what I've seen, they have not yet done that because they have so many. They tape so many shows at once to cover up so many weeks of television that they haven't done that yet. Now, what I'm hearing is that so Impact is hosting Bound for Glory in Toronto this year. I think it's up in Canada. And that will be the dawn of the new era of Impact Wrestling yet again. Now, Jeff Jarrett has he was sent home from Anthem, who's the parent company of Impact, and was going to be the parent company of Global Force. They were going to acquire Global Force from Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett was a creative director. He started off as just a consultant, and he kind of became a bigger deal again, like he used to be. And then I guess he got sent home due to maybe some drunken shenanigans of some sorts. And then they announced this. And then they ask, Jarrett says one thing about the whole deal. And he says on Twitter, Anthem is out of money.
Oh.
And that has been a rumor that Anthem has been looking to sell the Impact Wrestling brand that they acquired from Dixie Carter back in January.
They're going to end up selling it to Billy Corgan or WWE.
Well, Billy Corgan he's already in a deal to purchase the NWA.
Oh, so gave up.
That's been going on for months.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize he had given up his hopes on Impact once they ousted him and Dixie.
Yes, that deal ended in court, and it was a done deal. And then he set his sights elsewhere. The NWA is up for sale. He's looking at trying to turn the NWA into something. Haven't heard much about that in a long time, but that's the last thing I heard. That was months ago. Now, Anthem refuted Jeff and said, on the contrary, or no, they said inaccurate. Was what they said. Inaccurate. We are looking forward to the Canadian tour dates for Impact Wrestling, blah, blah, blah. Then Jeff turns around and puts himself into rehab.
Weird.
And then Jeff's daughter from his first marriage posts a post of her as a little girl with Jeff from like the late 90s. And basically said that they are not on good terms right now, but she's very supportive of her dad. In hopes that he saw the post, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what, that she loves him, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And then I don't know if she then later retweeted it or somebody posted something of somebody's like, "Huh, interesting. Yet another husband that Karen Jarrett has sent to rehab."
Jesus, oh no.
And then Jeff Jarrett's daughter retweeted it.
Oh, damn.
Oh, I'm like, damn. Things are not good in the hood over there.
Shots fired.
So, it sounds like that Impact, I've heard rumors of them being interested in Ricochet, trying to build up a new roster. Several wrestlers have given their notice to Impact. One of them being Rockstar Spud, and apparently WWE is interested in him into coming in for the Cruiserweight division that they were trying to build up for 205 Live. And I've also heard they're about ready to call up Hideo Itami to be on the Cruiserweight division.
Damn. They're getting stacked over in the Cruiserweight division right now, Brando.
Well,
that's the case.
They lost Neville. They lost Austin Aries, two really big guys. I know that's probably not the place where Austin Aries really wanted to be. However, I do think Austin Aries was trying to make the best of the situation.
Absolutely. And they fucked him.
Yeah.
He should have won his title at Mania. That would have been awesome.
Well, not only that, but the match should have been on the fucking DVD.
True. Also, did you know that Neville has been cut from 2K18? Or was cut from 2K18 right before its release?
That is ridiculous.
They are, well, and here's the other thing. We talked about a long list of releases. Neville's name is not one of them. They are not releasing Neville. They're going to fight to keep him in his contract. They're going to probably punish him monetarily until he's like, shit, I got to work for these guys. They're not going to let me go. I mean, he was a top guy. He was billed as a top guy and was building it up. They gave him the King Neville shtick for a hot minute, and then everything kind of fell to shit and fell by the wayside, and that's where we are now. In all of this is Neville's unhappy, looking for other things. It seems like a lot of people are unhappy. It also seems that ROH is a cool place. I feel like I'm going to start watching more ROH programming, honestly.
Well, I mean, welcome, I guess, to 2004, Nate. ROH has always been really cool stuff to watch. I mean, I've watched it on and off throughout the years, saw early stuff of Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, and, of course, Low Key, Chris Daniels, so many guys. And Homicide. Can't forget about Homicide over there. And then, of course, you have the next generation. You have your Kevin Steens, your
Tyler
El
Black.
Tyler Black, your El Genericos, that next class of crowd that are now all in WWE programming. But and of course Austin Aries, you can't forget him as well, with some of these great names that have come up throughout the roster. And then of course most recently Adam Cole is now in NXT.
Baby.
And I just got a text message.
Well, I'm
from our good friend Joe Grimes.
Oh, Joe Grimes. He got some wrestle talk?
He does have a wrestle talk. That's pretty much the only thing he texts me about, really.
Sure. What's it say? Let's riff it right here.
He says Bobby Roode has the most badass spine buster.
Dude, it's pretty pro looking. I mean, he's got it down better than I think even Triple H had it down. And I thought H had a hell of a spine buster for a while. But Bobby's is just so fluid.
Yeah, best spine buster in the business, though, in my opinion, always Double A.
Arn, yeah.
There is no better spine buster. I mean, and Triple H emulated that spine buster. I mean, that was Arn's spine buster without a doubt. But to me, I'll never forget it. One of the most impactful spine busters probably ever, and it was on the biggest stage. It was WrestleMania 18, Ric Flair versus Undertaker, and Taker's beating up Flair, and out of nowhere, Arn Anderson comes out there, and Taker. I think Taker kind of hits him first. And kind of takes him down, and then you think that, Arn came in, but he got taken down, and then he goes back, and then he comes back, he's running, and all of a sudden Arn grabs him, boom, spine buster, and the crowd popped so loud, is that Double A spine buster? Like shit,
still got it.
Fucking Double A nailed that spine buster on the Undertaker, and it was fucking awesome.
That was during Badass Undertaker, American Badass era.
Well, it was the Big Evil, I guess you could say. It was the next step from American Badass. It was right before he went back to Dead Man almost. But I was watching some old WCW. I was watching 1991 Halloween Havoc.
Cool.
And I was watching the tag team title defense between the Patriots, the U.S. Tag Champions, who were challenging the World Tag Team Champions, the Enforcers.
Ooh.
Of course, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko. And sitting there watching that, and it was a pretty standard tag match. I don't really think much of the Patriots. I don't even remember their names. I just remember the tag team name, and I'm like, wait, are they talking about Del Wilkes? I'm like, nope, not at all. Two other guys. Okay, carry on. And for some reason, of course, the Patriots were the U.S. Tag Team Champions because America. And you had the Enforcers, and I mean, both Arn and Larry were great workers in their own right. And I really feel like they are a underrated tag team because they were a damn good tag team. But then I remember just watching that match and see Arn hit that spine buster. It's been a long time since I've seen, maybe since a long time since I actually paid attention to Arn in the ring, because usually he's in there with somebody else. He's in there with somebody who's flashier or somebody who's kind of taking your attention away from him, and he's making them look good, like your Stings or whoever. But he just happens to be in there with these guys that are really just, no offense to those guys, just not that great. But they're carrying enough. But Larry and Arn are carrying these guys to a good match, and then so now I'm focusing in on the heels, and I'm watching them work, and I see Arn hit that fucking spine buster, and I'm like, God damn, he was so fucking good. Pro. I like how I really like how we just went and nerded out about Arn Anderson, because thanks Joe for that, because that was a tangent that needed to happen on this show.
I totally agree with
Arn
that.
Anderson. Arn Anderson is one of the most underrated wrestlers in the history of the business.
So Brando, I agree with you about Arn Anderson. By the way, he's phenomenal. He's been inducted in the Hall of Fame as the Four Horsemen. Not as a
and honestly, I feel like he's deserving by himself.
I agree with that.
I mean, he was a good singles guy, and then of course he had a couple of runs with some great tag teams. Of course, you had the Minnesota Wrecking Crew with Ole. You had Tully and Arn, the Brainbusters, and then you had again with Larry, with the Enforcers. He made all three of those teams work, and then of course all of his stuff with the Horsemen. He was a great promo. He was a great ring guy. One of the best guys you want in there to help get your guy over. If you're trying to get like a mid-card babyface over, put him in there with Arn. He will get that son of a bitch over. He'll make him look good. He's going to teach that kid everything that he's going to need to go to the next level and work with your big next levels like big top main eventers like Rick or Vader or Sid or whoever. Arn is going to get them ready for that. And then you just go into what he's done after as far as being backstage, being an agent. He's one of the best agents in the business. He gets it, man. And I just feel like a lot of times there's just not enough love for Arn. I mean, people always say, well, yeah, he was the enforcer of the Horsemen. But to me, there is no Horseman without Arn Anderson.
I agree with you.
In every single iteration of the Horsemen, there's always Rick. And you can't have the Horseman without Ric Flair, sure. But if Arn isn't there, it's always, to me, because after he retired, they carried on and they did it, still. But he was always like the stalwart, like the common piece, because you had Rick you had him saying all these crazy things and wooing and carrying on, being the star, and then you put the mic over to Arn and he told you exactly how it was. He told you exactly the way it was going to be, and there was no other way about it. No bullshit in it, and I really, really liked Arn throughout the years.
Man, Arn Anderson's the bomb. But another wrestler that's the bomb, different kind of the bomb. One of my favorites from the hardcore era is recently retired, which I didn't even fucking know. It's like 2 weeks old. This news is old for us, but it's probably fresh in some other people's minds.
I saw it a few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know this happened, but in Chicago at an ROH Global Wars event, Bubba Ray Dudley retired, and it was a beautiful send off. There was a amazing reaction from the crowd. He did a really cool, meaningful thing with the final table he ever broke, and there was a kid in the crowd. I don't know if you watched it or not, but
yeah,
it was pretty touching. It was really awesome. It was sad to see him hang up the boots, but I think he made a really great point in saying, this is the point in his life where he's got to start focusing on his health.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but he was actually at a Ring of Honor show. And he went through a table, and he got knocked loopy.
I did not know that.
I guess he took a bad table spot, and the table, I don't know if it broke or whatever, but the table hit him in the head.
Ooh.
And it was one of the first times ever that he's ever been scared. As far as like wow, here he is this old and then hit this late in his career. I don't want to say he's old, but he's been in the business forever, like 25 years almost. And it's like here he is at the stage of his life, still doing it, man. And he takes one spot, a spot that he's probably done a million times, and that table just didn't break right. And I could just imagine him sitting there. I want to say they took him to the he went to the hospital to get checked out, and he ends up he ended up being fine.
Yeah.
But he's sitting there thinking, what about next time? I don't know how old Bubba is. If he's definitely in his 40s.
I was going to say 44 probably.
44, 45. He's getting up there. And I could just imagine him being like, I don't want to spend the latter part of my life in regret of like going too long, getting hurt. Some guys do. Some guys don't get out, and then they get hurt, and then it affects their quality of life for later on.
Yep.
Or just in general, a guy like McFoley who has numerous health problems because of the style that he did. That has come back to bite him, and he's needed all these surgeries. And God love McFoley for everything that he did, for the way that he entertained people, but he is paying the price for it now.
Oh yes, he is.
And I hope that they can get him, get some good quality surgery on him and get him fixed up. And hopefully he keeps on that DDP yoga and helps him out, because, I don't want in 30 years, when I'm starting to get old, to see a frail, broken, wheelchair-ridden Mick Foley. and there, he might still end up in a wheelchair by that age, but I mean, heck, he'd probably be about 80 by then. But I just want him to be able to be as comfortable and enjoy his life, enjoy his grandkids when he has them, and not be not. I want him to be in as less amount of pain as it is possible for the amount of suffering he put himself through. But for Bubba, man, it was time. That time comes, and sometimes it comes earlier than others. Sometimes it goes later than others. But for him, they had that last run of the WWE for the Dudleys, and I feel like they came back just to do that, to put a bow on that, like on that part of their careers. And then I kind of felt like he felt like he was in his twilight. He's like, I'm gonna go help out these young guys, and help them get over, just like the Terry Funk did for them in ECW all those years ago. So I just got derailed by Joe again. He says, I really hope Miz kicks Corbin's ass.
Same. We'll get into that.
First of all, I don't think Miz has ever kicked anybody's ass.
Correct.
But me too, Joe. Me too. Before we get into the meat, there is a big rumor about the location for WrestleMania 35. Have you heard about this?
Detroit.
No.
Where?
According to an article on WXYZ.com, the rumor about Detroit being the frontrunner for WrestleMania 35 is inaccurate. Here's an excerpt from the site's article. The Detroit Sports Commission, which submits bids for major sporting events throughout the city of Detroit, said despite the rumor, they did not submit a bid for 35, only 33 and 34. The Twitter account WrestleVotes is reporting that New York and Philadelphia are the two front runners for 35 at this point.
Let's go Philly.
Yeah, you know what? I think I want Philly to get it too. And New York, to me, I feel like they would go back and be that New York, New Jersey thing, because they don't want to do anything lesser than a stadium at this point. And if you're going to run New York, I know that their new New York home base is always the Barclays Center now.
Yeah,
that's their home base. That they like doing events there. It's a newer building. That and MSG is so expensive to rent, but they run it, dude. They run it at least once or twice a year to do live events, but they never do TV tapings there anymore, and that really irritates me. There was I think a TV taping in 2009 where they didn't even have the stage, dude. They had that small little opening that they had for WrestleMania like 10, and then they had it for like the Royal Rumble 2000, where they had that small little area open, and that was like the old school entrance for the old MSG stuff, right? And for Raw, they had the entire Raw set condensed to this small little like door.
That 2009 match you're talking, or that 2009 event that you're talking about that they taped from, had a Kofi versus Randy Orton match.
Yes,
they fought into the crowd.
Yeah,
I remember.
But I really liked the vibe of that. It was a little bit more intimate. It was different than your standard every day or every week Raw. It made it feel different. I think Taker was there, or like he made an appearance. I don't remember what he did, but I always thought that, hey, go back and do that again like that. That was really cool, because even if it was just for that night, dude, have something different. Have something that looks different on TV. It changes it up, because now your set is the freaking same.
Every week,
over and over and over again. It's not as bad as it was during the first part of the HD era, where they had the same set for every show, just different graphics. At least Raw and SmackDown have different sets now, slightly.
True, not majorly, but slightly.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna dive right into TLC and the card, which I have not even pulled up. I am not prepared.
There's only 8 matches to talk about, Brando. This is actually like a quick-ass pay-per-view, considering the longest match of the night was the last match of the night, and it went almost 36 minutes.
And that was the main event?
Correct. The shortest match of the night would have been... Looks like it's the tag team match from 205 Live. Only got 8 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Where are you at? Results. Here we are. Results. So running down the results really quick. Sasha Banks defeated Alicia Fox by submission.
Pre-show.
That was in the pre-show, and then of course the first opening match of the night, the debut of Asuka, defeated Emma by submission. Then we have Cedric Alexander and Rich Swann defeated Gentleman Jack Gallagher. I almost always want to say Gallagher. And the Brian Kendrick. A good, solid match for 8 minutes, dude. I was actually pretty entertained by this match.
Yeah, it was a great match.
Alexa Bliss defeated Mickie James. Enzo Amore defeated Kalisto to recapture the Cruiserweight title. Finn Balor defeated AJ Styles. Jason Jordan defeated Elias. And then in the main event, the TLC match that was really just kind of a hardcore match. 5-on-3 handicap. The not reunited Shield, but sort of the temporary Shield. Kurt Angle, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins defeated The Miz, Cesaro, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and Kane. So, what did you think of the show overall, Nate? Because for me, I felt the show, for the most part, was good or all right. And what I mean by that is that, like, I really felt like there were two matches here. Of course, you had the two that were probably the most affected by the roster change. Were obviously the matches of the night and the ones to go out of your way to watch. The Asuka match was okay. I honestly felt like she sold a little too much. Just my opinion. You don't always need to book Asuka as a monster, but I just felt like giving Emma that much offense. I mean, yeah, they did a rematch the next night, but I don't know. Especially now that she's gone. I don't see how that helps Emma at all in hindsight, I guess. But overall, it's like this is far from the best pay-per-view or best event of the year. But overall, for basically having the cards that they were dealt with, there's only probably one match on here, two maybe, that and that's the Jason Jordan and Elias. I didn't like any of those bits. I'm just bored out of my mind. But I thought the Cruiserweight match was all right. I thought Alexa Bliss and Mickie James was all right. I liked the tag match. Asuka and Emma was good. I don't even know if I saw the pre-show match, to be honest with you. So, but the Finn Balor and AJ had a damn good match for the time that they were given. They damn near went 20 minutes. Then, of course, the main event. The main event was a bit convoluted. I do have some problems with it, but overall, pretty entertaining. What did you think?
Yeah, man, this card was really a solid card for WWE, considering all the late-breaking changes and losing Roman Reigns and losing Bray Wyatt to this backstage virus, started by Bo Dallas. Maybe they all have the bow. I don't know. To me, like you said, the Finn Balor match versus AJ Styles match sticks out, as does the main event. If we're talking about overall the card, this is a solid B+ show, and I give them a B+ because considering they had to within a couple days completely shift plans due to this virus that happened backstage, they really did a great job of going, well, how can we make this still interesting? And we got Kurt Angle on a retirement. I wasn't certain if WWE was ever going to let him in a ring, and now they're like, oh shit, he can still go. I feel like now, though, he needs to change up his gimmick, and he should be known as Kid in the Candy Store Kurt, because that's what he looked like coming out with the Shield. He was like a Make-A-Wish kid, like, holy fuck, look at me, I'm a part of the Shield now, woo!
Oh, man, the memes are great. I love the one that said when your dad said he wants to come to the matches to watch you, he's walking out with you, like, yay!
He was elated. It was great.
I was tickled to see him walk out in the Shield garb, be honest with you. I thought it was kind of cool because I mean, don't get me wrong. A large part of me was just I was waiting for his music to hit and to see him come out in his gear, and then him do his whole the pyro and all that shit. Right, I was ready. And then when they did the Shield, I'm like, okay, so they're still going to do Shield intro for all three of them. He's wearing the Shield shit. I'll be damned. And then yeah, he looked so like, yay, I'm here. But what's funny is that I really think that all along they were going to have Kurt come back and do something. obviously he passed the physical. He's good to go. He was wrestling before. They acted like he hadn't wrestled in 11 years. It's like the TNA years that they talked about. Didn't happen. Stuff in England didn't happen. Stuff in Japan. He was IWGP third belt champ. Didn't happen. So they acted like he hadn't done all that, but when in reality he has, and he can go. But they still kind of played it safe with him this time, where they kind of kept him out of danger. He wouldn't do any crazy stuff, and he doesn't need to be at this age. He does not. Less is definitely more when you're 48 years old. Okay, all you got to do is go in there, you do some mat wrestling, throw him around, throw on some holds, hit some Germans, maybe a couple other styles of suplexes. Throw your straps down.
Drop the straps. Yep.
Drop the straps. Angle slam, ankle lock. Kick out, ankle lock. Kick out. Attempted angle slam, no. Another German. Trust me, if Brock Lesnar can get away with one move, then Kurt can get away with 5.
Correct.
So,
and Kurt would have done. Kurt will do fine when that happens. It seems like they're teasing Survivor Series to be more Kurt wrestling, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Did you see what he posted on the Instagrams?
No.
He was getting new gear made.
Oh.
And they were patriotic themed gear with some stripes and some stars. And he was meeting with the WWE seamstress, and she was making him some new gear. He said #comeback. I think like they were going to do something with him all along. They were just waiting to tell that story, not rushing into it. Let's take our time. Let's play out this role. Now that they were pretty much backed into a corner where they were like, well, who do we put here that makes sense? And I guess Kurt's name kind of came up or pretty early on. And we're like, well, if he could pass the physical, let's go for it. The cool thing is that him coming back and doing that actually made me want to watch that pay-per-view even more.
Yeah.
I have not really been that excited for wrestling. I just haven't. And I don't know if it's just I'm just so busy. I haven't had time to sit down and watch. I've watched some old stuff, but as far as the current product, man, since Mania, my interest has waned. And that's part of the reason why we're doing a seasonal format now, because I don't think that I could continue to do a wrestling show with the kind of enthusiasm that I used to be able to. And that's just because I think my interest in the overall sport or product, whatever, is just, it's not what it used to be. So while, yes, I did want to see the Shield reunite, I was not interested in watching it the night it debuted. Anything about that card, the only thing that there was only 2 things that I really wanted to see, and that was the Asuka premiere or debut, and I wanted to see this, the Shield reunited, but I was going to watch it later. Obviously, Walking Dead take precedent, so I watched TLC until The Walking Dead came on, and Walking Dead ended. Then I put TLC back on and caught the main event, and I went back the next day to finish up the 2 matches or 3 matches that I missed. But having this whole shift, and I remember it was Thursday or Friday, I lost my shit. I was like, what? Kurt Angle to come out of retirement this Sunday and replace Roman Reigns. What? And I thought that honestly made me just excited as I used to get when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When they would do something that crazy on television. And really, honestly, that should be the way that they should do shit now. I'm just going to say it. They need to utilize their social media and make crazy changes, make crazy angle stuff on Facebook. Utilize their social medias, because everybody has one of these. Everybody has a freaking phone. Everybody's on their phone all the damn time. Everybody has social, all the the Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams. When I saw that, I got so excited that I stopped what I was doing to look into it more and figure out. So he is out and he's in. What? And then on top of that, AJ is in against Finn. With what?
First time they're ever competing against each other in a WWE match last-second throw-together match.
And they could have put anybody in that spot against Finn. There could have been other guys, but they were looking like, man, we need somebody who's going to sell this event. And then, man, come on. That, to me, shows you how much they look at and how much they think of AJ Styles.
Oh, yeah. He is their guy.
They don't see him as another guy. They don't see him as another guy. He is a top guy.
Absolutely. And he flew all the way from Chile to do TLC, which is crazy. And it ended with a little too sweetness at the end there. A little too sweetness, which was crazy. Not one sweet. We're not one sweet around here, which is the new Bullet Club thing.
Now, how do you do that? Is it like this?
Is it? Yeah, it's
like, yeah. It's
you have to keep the
weird.
pinky down. It's the pinky down. That's the weird thing. This pay-per-view was pretty, like I said, it was all right. I'm not upset with it. It actually unintentionally transitionally set up the following night on Raw, because as soon as the following night on Raw happens, AJ is on the Raw roster working a match on Raw. Hey, we're going to borrow him one more night here on Raw, and he tagged with the Shield. Against, was it Sheamus, Cesaro, and Miz, I think? And Kane? I don't remember. But anyways.
Well, no, Kane Kane got a clean victory over Finn the next night, right?
That's right. Finn got kind of buried. Everyone was like, what's going on with that? Why would you do that? Like, are you trying to instill dominance of Kane or trying to put Finn down? That doesn't matter. That's not the point.
Kane for mayor.
He is running for mayor. He might be mayor. The thing that I thought was interesting about this, though, is now AJ's on Raw already, and then the next thing that's happening is Raw's under siege by SmackDown, which I know you're not really a huge fan of that brand. All of a sudden, they're battling for no reason. I feel like Shane has done a really great job of selling it as, like, damn it, SmackDown has been the little sister, the kid sister to Raw for long enough, and we're all fucking grown up now, and we're coming to take you out and prove a point.
Yeah, let's go invade with all the stars I'm not going to use on the pay-per-view.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, other than a few. No, we were talking about this because we were trying to figure out how we were going to do a show for this week, and I kind of admitted to you I'm not really that excited. I'm excited for some of the matches and the prospect of some of the matches, but the story just doesn't intrigue me. It's a story we've seen over and over again. Brand warfare, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, I'm really dedicated to my brand, even though I'll be traded and go over to the other brand soon. Let us all wear matching T-shirts, blue versus red, blue versus red. Damn it, we're all blue versus red. This is how we are in this country. We are red versus blue.
Ooh, Rooster Teeth
reference. But it's like, you know, I'm okay with SmackDown versus Raw. Like last year, they really didn't make it into a story. They just did it. They said, hey, competition, here it is. And I actually like that more. Yes, it doesn't make for interesting television, God forbid. But one of my favorite things is when SmackDown invaded and Booker T's losing his shit and goes, I've never seen anything like this in my 28 years. My really bad Booker T impersonation. He was a part of the invasion of WCW.
Correct.
He was the WCW champion. Sucker.
5-time. Lost it to The Rock.
He did lose it to The Rock. But, man, I don't know. I'm excited for some of these matches that we've got prospected. But the overall storyline, take it, leave it. Not going to really follow it that much unless something comes out on like a news report, because I don't really watch Raw and SmackDown live anymore. I just kind of check it out and figure out what I want to watch from it. That is, and this is coming from a kid who never missed a Monday night.
Yeah.
I never missed Monday night growing up. I never missed it even going into my teen years, and even when I got out on my own, I never missed it until like when I started like working nights. When I started working nights, I had to miss it because then I would watch it on DVR, but then I found out I could fast forward to the crap I don't want to watch. And then that's how I started watching it, was on fast forward. And then now it's just like, was there anything that happened that I want to see? Nope. All right, next week. And that has become it. And that might be a reason why I'm not as passionate or as into it, but that's just kind of how I've delved into my wrestling nowadays. But Nate, we have sort of the card for Survivor Series.
Yeah, let's just get into that real quick. We'll finish with our other thing. I like that idea better.
Yeah. Because I mean, we're
right
gonna have
here.
another episode. I think when we get closer, we're gonna look at this, and hopefully, maybe the storyline will kind of hook me a little bit, and and get me really excited. So we have all the champions facing each other. We have the women's champion for SmackDown and Raw, Alexa Bliss versus Natalya. We have the United States champion, Baron Corbin, versus The Miz, who Joe really hopes beats Corbin's ass. Who's the Intercontinental champion. We have the tag team champions from Raw, who are Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins versus the Usos. That'll be a great match. I'm really looking forward to that.
Might be match of the night.
Exactly. And then we have the women's SmackDown versus Raw Survivor Series match. And then we have the men's SmackDown versus Raw Survivor Series match. And then the main event of the night will be the Universal Champion Brock Lesnar versus the WWE Champion Jinder Mahal. Now, I think I nailed it all. Did I get it all?
You got it all, buddy. You didn't miss a single thing. That was
off
great.
the top of my head, because I'm like, I don't have the card. I'm just going to go with it. So, for the majority of the matches, I really don't have anything to say. All the champions versus champions, there are going to be no championships on the line. They're all going to be exhibition. They've got to be careful. Like, I don't really give a crap what they do with Miz and Corbin. Just don't make Miz look that bad. The women's, I don't really care what they do. For the women's title, the tag match, that'll be pretty good. I think there's no way that Ambrose and Seth lose there just because of how they've been building them. The women's SmackDown vs. Raw Survivor Series match, again, I don't really, I mean, they're going to build a team. They're going to fight. The men's, we'll get back to that because we have sort of like the outlines of the teams kind of coming about. And I'm more excited for that than I am probably most of the entire event. But then you have Lesnar versus Jinder. And this is where you've got to be careful. Because I'm not looking at this for what Brando would do, because of what Brando would do, you all know what I would do. Miz would be WWE champion right now.
Yep.
That's not the world that we live in. Right now, they're booking Jinder. And if somebody came to me and said, Brando, come to work, you need to book the WWE for us until WrestleMania. Here is what we have for you. You cannot change it. Go. And I'm looking at, I've got several months yet that I need to book. I need to look at who I have on deck. And I'm seeing that they are building Jinder possibly to a WrestleMania match as WWE champion.
Possibly.
He cannot lose clean to Brock Lesnar. Absolutely not. You can't. Lesnar cannot lose clean to Jinder either, because he's not around enough to be able to bounce back from that kind of loss. Granted, last year he got beaten like 90 seconds, but that was Goldberg. I mean, that's a different beast. And then he could say, "Well, you got the one up on me so fast that I could beat you if we ever fight longer," right? That's the old wrestling adage. It's like, well, it was so fast it doesn't count, and I wasn't ready. That's the whole heel attitude. But you got to protect both these guys. I would put Lesnar over. Now, I've heard rumors that they're going to have a special guest referee. I've heard some names tossed around. And if I were booking this is what I would do, because I've heard this name tossed around. And there's like 3 names I've heard, okay?
Sure.
2 of the names, really big names. And I'm like, cool. Don't make any damn sense for them to be there. Other than, hi, I'm a big wrestler name. Yay for me.
Special appearance, woo!
But for me, you want to build a story out of it. So even though he's busy, I say John Cena is a special guest referee. Jinder loses in the middle of all of this winning he's been doing. What's the common thing here? It was John. So when John comes back, yay, WrestleMania's here. Guess who's coming back for WrestleMania season once again like a part-timer? Me. And Jinder's like, you screwed me over at Survivor Series. And that's when we get to WrestleMania between John and Jinder. And there you go. It writes itself.
It does write itself, Brandon. That's
it's so easy, because then you can ease Brock into whatever he's going to be doing. Probably Roman. That sounds wrong.
Yeah, it definitely sounded wrong.
But anyway, that's what I would do for that. But let's go back to that men's Survivor Series match, because we have SmackDown team almost entirely laid out, Nate. We have the team captain, Shane McMahon.
McMahon.
Then we have along with him, we have Shinsuke Nakamura, Randy Orton, and Bobby Roode.
Yep.
Next week, the winner of Rusev versus AJ Styles. It's going to be AJ Styles.
Of course, it's going to be fucking AJ Styles.
It's got to be AJ Styles. That's going to be one. Oh, my God, that's a damn good team. So for Team Raw, Stephanie made Angle the team captain. So it's going to be Angle, and then he's named Strowman as his first guy. So the rumors that I've heard, Nate, Joe,
Yep.
Finn,
Yep.
and Roman. Roman is slated to be back the weekend before. He's a top guy, and if you're building a team, that's not what I would do. Because for me, I would put the bar in there.
Oh yeah.
But Joe just came back. Strowman, oh yeah. Finn, don't want to lose out there. And if Roman's not going to be in there, which they think he's going to be ready. He's not cleared yet. But they're banking on him being ready. And I could see him being ready and have that be his first big thing back as that match. Now, what do you do? Because this whole thing, unless I'm mistaken, and I don't have the card laid out in front of me, but is this 7 matches?
Yeah, it's not very big.
So you can have a best of 7.
Ooh. So one team can take all, essentially.
Well, one team could take all, or like you have 7 matches, so you could have like the way you could lead it up is to going into the main event. SmackDown has 3 wins, Raw has 3 wins. Lesnar, Jinder, who's going to win? And of course it'd be Lesnar, but of course last year Raw lost the Men's Survivor Series match, and it was the longest. It was like an hour-long match. It was a freaking awesome match. But last year it was Roman taking the fall against Bray and Randy. And man, I can't wait to see that because that's going to be an awesome setup. I mean, Team SmackDown is stacked with the great guys.
Oh yeah,
and of course this is going to be sort of high profile for Bobby Roode and Shinsuke. Really, Shinsuke's already main event of pay-per-views, but like Bobby, I mean, he's been wrestling with Dolph. He's been getting ready, and this will be a big, huge profile for him to be in the same ring with a guy like Roman Reigns, who's considered a top guy, and AJ right now. I see nothing but big things for Bobby coming up soon.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. Bobby is definitely one of my favorites on the current roster now, and I'm hoping that his singles push keeps going up, up, up. Love Dolph Ziggler not having music now. I love how clever that is because it is so different. No entrance at all. You know, it starts and then just shut it down, you know, which is neat. Brando, Survivor Series looks like it's going to be fun. If it was up to me, I feel like they keep teasing that AJ is going to challenge Jinder for that title. And it's like at this point, you know, with Starrcade's coming up around the corner too, Shinsuke's got a title opportunity against Jinder. What happens if Jinder gets hurt before Survivor Series, putting him in all these different kinds of matches? That's something I don't think they're even thinking about, you know?
Jinder's already working through an injury, so they need to be careful. I mean, worst case scenario, if Jinder gets hurt, I mean, then you shift gears. I mean, you go with what you can. And who's going to carry it? It's going to be AJ for me.
Put AJ in and then have him up against Brock.
Absolutely. Come on now.
Awesome.
That match would be off the freaking chain.
Yes, it would.
Off the freaking chain. But I see AJ challenging Jinder after Survivor Series, going into whatever event they have for that. Is that Roadblock? Is it? I don't know what it is. I can't remember the damn name of this shit anymore.
They keep shifting them so much, you know.
Yeah, because we already had Hell in a Cell, didn't we?
Yes.
And we had TLC.
Yep. And Money in the Bank.
Clash of Champions is one of them.
Yes.
Roadblock and Clash of Champions are coming up in December, I think.
Sweet. Brando. So, I mean, I'm sure we're both very excited for Survivor Series here. We have been doing a new thing, though, that I think we should probably shift gears into, considering we're going to come back and do a whole nother episode, right before Survivor Series. We can really dive in, maybe get some picks, talk about how the story has evolved from where it is now, which is still kind of early, honestly. A couple weeks here to go before the pay-per-view. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears here and talk about one of our favorite superstars. And here's the best part. We don't know who we're going to talk about because this is going to be completely random, Brando. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, we have picked 10 superstars or 10 wrestlers, and we have put them into a random name picker. Of course, last week was the debut of this segment, or last episode, I guess a few weeks ago, and it picked Bret Hart. We've gone through and we've tried to equal it out to where there's stars throughout the ages. The old, and probably for us, the cap out would be 80s. I didn't watch too much 70s stuff, to be honest with you.
Same.
But so 80s, 90s, and now, 2000s and now is probably going to be what we're going to be talking about. And so we have quite the list of names here. I'm sure Nate has forgotten some of these. So are you ready, Nate?
Yes, sir.
And we are picking a random name. Ho, 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 ho.
Oh, hold on. I'm going to guess because the way you reacted, okay? There is a name on this list that is extremely controversial.
Yes.
And he is who was picked today.
Chris Benoit.
You know what, though? We have to talk about him as a wrestler. I think it's important for us as wrestling fans not to forget what he did in the ring. And to not highlight only the things he did in his personal life at the end of his life.
It's just, man, it's touchy. Even all these years later, it's been 10 years. It's very, poignant maybe I didn't even think about that when we added him to the list. I knew that we were going to talk about him eventually. Maybe not this soon, but Chris Benoit, man, I was a fan of Chris Benoit from the get-go. The first time I saw him was in WCW. I remember it was actually his second go-around to WCW. He was there before, and he worked for New Japan. He came in and worked some stuff in the early 90s. And then after he was in New Japan and then came over into ECW, and he ended up going back to ECW or WCW. And it was around the start of Nitro is when he kind of came back and started working, and it was before he kind of like got into the Horsemen. But I really liked his rough work style. Ultimately, that might have led to what happened later on.
Yeah,
with some damage to his brain. However you want to, look at this, it's very difficult because you're looking at a guy who accomplished so much in his career, and is such a decorated wrestler, Hall of Fame career, and yet you will never ever be honored for that because of the darkness that happened at the end of his life. And it's haunting. It really, because I remember that. I remember that end, and we will talk about that. But Nate, when was the first time that you saw Chris Benoit?
Well, he was predating Toothless Aggression during the Ruthless Aggression era in WCW when I first got into wrestling. Benoit was a part of a version of the Four Horsemen with Dean. And who else was in that? It was Dean and
Mongo.
Who was it?
Dean, Mongo. It was Rick, Mongo, Dean, and Chris.
That's right. Steve Mongo McMichaels. Totally forgot.
Like the last version of the Horsemen.
Yep.
But Chris was actually in the Horsemen before that, when it was Rick, Arn, Chris, and Brian Pillman. And then Brian ended up leaving, and then Mongo came in, and it was those four.
Yeah, so that's my first exposure to the Crippler, Chris Benoit. He had the Crippler crossface, which was an awesome finisher. Diving headbutt off the top rope, which was, maybe not a great choice of finisher, but you can't take back the history. He had so many different awesome matches that I think about. And one that sticks out to me is like, I don't know if you remember this, but he and Chris Jericho stole the show at Royal Rumble 2001.
Yes.
Go back and watch that match. Even to this
Was it the
day.
ladder?
Yes, it was phenomenal. It was amazing match. Obviously, you know, there were matches that you can go back in time and watch where, you know, in WCW he was up against Eddie, or when he and Booker T had the best of 7
for the World Television title. That was great.
Yeah, or well, they also didn't they do but he and Booker T did a best of 7 in WWE for the U.S. title as well.
Yes.
And strangely enough, we saw one of the best of 7 live at an event, if you'll remember.
We did. It was in November of 2005.
Yep.
It was it was a week before Eddie Guerrero died.
I'll never forget it.
Neither will I. That was very surreal to have woken up the week after that and woken up to that news of Eddie passing. But for me, the standout was always his style. It was very physical, very, very aggressive. You know, he was nicknamed in WWE the Rabid Wolverine, and that was very fitting. A lot of his style was taken from the Dynamite Kid. He looked up to the Dynamite Kid, and that's where the headbutt comes from. A lot of his really snap style is from Dynamite, and of course, when he got into the business, he ended up going to Japan, and he became a huge hit over Japan, working under a mask as the Pegasus Kid.
Yep, Pegasus Kid.
And then eventually, he unmasked and became Wild Pegasus, and became a different kind of character. But him coming into WWE, of course, that was highlighted by the Radicals. He came over with Dean, with Saturn, and with Eddie.
Yep.
And actually, there was someone else who was in that talk. I actually found this out thanks to a great podcast, a wrestling podcast called Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. There was another guy who was wanting to jump over.
Who was it?
Conan. Now check this out. Check it out. He called Bruce, right? Because Conan knew Bruce. And or he called the headquarters wanting to talk to Bruce. And I guess somebody got a hold of Bruce. Like, hey, there's some guy on the phone. He wants to talk to you. Bruce is like, who? He's like, somebody named K-Dog. And Bruce wasn't watching WCW. He really didn't watch what they were doing unless it was something big and massive, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't really watching. And he goes, who? He goes, I don't know. So Bruce got on the phone with him and goes, Yellow, yes, it's Bruce Pritchard. He goes, and then he goes, yo, this is K-Dog. Who? It's K-Dog, Bruce. I'm interested in coming in. And Bruce didn't know it was Conan. Because Bruce knew him for years as Conan. Conan had actually worked in the WWF prior to that, under the Max Moon gimmick, but never made it to television under that. And in fact, Bret Hart credits Conan for giving him the sharpshooter.
I knew that.
And so, because it was a Scorpion Deathlock, right? So Bruce tells him, all right, man, send in a tape and we'll take a look at you. And apparently Conan was very disrespected by that. He's like, of course, you got to remember, back in the late 90s and all this kind of stuff, like, Conan was not he was like a maybe upper mid card guy. He was maybe like a road dog type character. He was on the mic all the time. People recognized him. They understood it. Yo, let me speak on this. Came on that mic. People knew his shtick. He wrestled, had mostly good matches. He led. He was in the NWO during its height. He was in the Wolfpack at its height. He was in the Filthy Animals with Eddie and Ray and Kidman. He was around, dude. He was in. And Bruce didn't know who he was because he didn't know he was calling himself K-Dog.
Should have just said Conan, motherfucker. That's
who
I
man.
am.
And so he never called him back. And I guess Conan for years was like, what the hell? But they've made up.
Miscommunication in life. Back to Chris.
back to Chris. I remember WrestleMania 2000, the triple threat double title match with Chris, Jericho, and Kurt Angle, where both the Intercontinental and European Championships were on the line. And the next year, Kurt Angle again at 17. And then, of course, shortly after that, you had Kurt Angle and Benoit in a cage. Do you remember this? Live on Raw.
Is that the infamous Kurt Angle moonsault off the top of the cage?
And then Chris Benoit headbutt off the top of the cage.
Top of the cage. Yeah, I do remember that.
And Austin was on commentary with Heyman and JR. This being heel Austin, which I went back and rewatched that over the summer, and I was highly entertained by heel Austin. I think I'm one of the only people that really enjoyed that era of Austin, because he made me laugh like every week. I really enjoyed what he was doing, but Chris unfortunately would get hurt with his neck and would be out for quite some time. But then Chris had such an ability to have great matches. And here's a match that was back in WCW. That was his tribute match to Owen Hart with Brett. It was live. It was in the Kemper Arena, the same building that Owen fell from. And I want to say it was in... Was it the same year later on?
Yeah, it was like in October or November, right?
It was something like that. And then Brett and Chris. I mean, Brett could work that match with anybody, and he chose Chris. Chris came up with Owen in the business, and they had an awesome match. Of course, they would have another awesome match a couple months later at the Mayhem pay-per-view to crown a new champion, and then Chris would be champion. He would win the title. He won some people don't remember that Chris Benoit won the WCW championship, and then he walked out the next night.
That's crazy. I actually did not know that.
Yeah, he won the title at Sold Out, maybe, or it was at a pay-per-view in 2000, and then he walked out the next night. He had just won the WCW title, and he was really unhappy over there, and as were a lot of the guys, and they ended up getting their release and getting let go. Of course, you don't know what would have happened. They were putting the belt on him to kind of say, hey, we're not ignorant to your gripes. Here's the belt. We're putting the big title on you now, and that wasn't enough at that point. It was like too late. He was already fed up. But that made it where when he did win his next world title, I'll never forget that because I was actually with you.
Yeah, we were watching WrestleMania 20 together.
Yes, that was the main event.
Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris.
Yes. Triple H was champion.
Eddie had retained and defeated Booker T that night, maybe?
Kurt Angle.
He did he was in the ankle lock, and he rolled his boot off and got out of it.
What it was is that he was in the ankle lock for so long, and he finally kicked Angle out of the ring, but he was acting like his ankle was so hurt he was untying his boot, trying to relieve the pressure on his ankle. And then that's when Angle looked up and saw how Eddie was struggling, and then Eddie mouthed the "oh fuck," and then Angle went in there to go get him, and then he got him for the small package, and after he got he tried to go for the ankle again, but he pulled the shoe off. Eddie was great, but for another time. Their triple threat match for here between Benoit, Michaels, and Triple H, it was fantastic. They all brought it. Shawn bled like a stuck pig. It was pretty cool because you got to see, and sometimes that they like to do in the old or not the old, but in the triple threat matches, that they like to get two guys that used to be pals. Now they're not pals anymore, but all of a sudden they start teaming up, and it's like olden times. They did that shtick with Batista and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30 when they teamed up against Daniel.
Yep.
And they did that whole Batista bomb into an RKO through a table. That Randy about messed his back up on.
Oh.
But Chris wins here in Madison Square Garden. He wins the World Heavyweight Championship. and all the confetti starts flying down, and it's his crowning moment. It's his Lifetime Achievement Award here, and of course he's very emotional. He's worked his entire life for this. This is the world championship that matters to him, and or should I say that the title win that really matters because everything is right. You know, the other one, he got the world title, but he was so unhappy that it didn't matter. It wasn't how he wanted it. Now it's right. It's all the things are right in the world for him. And then, of course, he's celebrating, and unscripted, Eddie comes out, and he's standing behind him. And the best part is Benoit did not know he was going to be there. And then Benoit sees him and instantly breaks down again. And Eddie seeing him break down
makes Eddie break down.
And then they celebrate together, and it's one of the more awesome moments from that era of wrestling. It was like, and it's a moment they'll never be able to show, because of the way things ended. After that, Chris never really got back up to the top of the card. He wrestled, and he had some awesome matches. I think of his matches with MVP.
Yeah.
Were really good. His whole series, matches with him. And of course, he was U.S. champion after that. And then, of course, he was slated to become the ECW champion as sort of like the guy leading the ECW locker room and helping the younger guys. Well, that never happened because the night of the pay-per-view, he never made it. He no-called, no-showed, or it's not like him to miss a show, especially not like him to miss pay-per-view. And, of course, that's the weekend that everything happened with him. And we don't need to dive into that, but I do remember not checking the news or anything. I'm such a notorious checker of the damn dirt sheets, and I have been for like 15 years, where it's like I just on habit do it, but for some reason that day I didn't do it. I didn't get online. I didn't do anything, and I knew there was like a 3-hour Raw that night, and they were doing because they just killed Vince in that storyline, and I actually came into the show late. I remember I was living in the apartment now for a couple of weeks with my wife, and then our buddy Rob, and I turned it on, and they were just showing this package on Chris, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're showing the package on Chris. Okay, that's cool. And then they just kept talking about Chris. I'm like, why are they showing all this? And then they showed an empty arena, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I can't remember if it was Michael Cole or whoever was on commentary or whoever it was, they kind of, or maybe it was Vince in the middle of the ring. They just said, I'm like, what the fuck, he died? And I'm like, I'm sitting there going, and I'm looking, and it's like a half hour into the show, and I'm like, they canceled the entire, what the hell happened? And little did I know that it was all over the news.
Yeah.
And then I start looking it up, and I start seeing stuff, and then even during the show, of course, they decided to do on a gut reaction. They found out Chris and his family had died. They didn't know the details. They decided, all right, we're going to stop the show, and we're going to do a whole tribute show to him. It was a 3-hour tribute show, Nate.
Yeah.
And during the airing of that show, they found out that the police had confirmed that it was a murder-suicide, and that Chris had murdered his wife and his kid, and then himself. And they were airing a tribute show. And what do you do? What do you do? You're in the middle of like, oh my gosh. I don't even, like, I wouldn't know what to do. Because your gut reaction is get the shit off the air.
Yeah.
But then you're like, then what do you do?
Yeah, you're fucked. It's
you don't know the details. You just know what's being released as it's being released. I remember, like, I didn't religiously watch ECW at that time. But I remember like tuning in the next night. I'm like, I gotta know what they're gonna do, what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
And they opened it up with Vince apologizing for airing the tribute show and saying that from there on in, they're never ever going to mention him again in light of things. And they've actually had talks, or if Stephanie has been asked about it in interviews, because they've said that, well, he's on the network. He's been actually more recently, I think he's been mentioned in like one of the encyclopedia books.
Okay.
Or whatever, because WWE puts out an annual kind of like revisioned encyclopedia book every once in a while. And I guess he was mentioned, and they ask her, and they're like, about the Chris stuff on the network. It's like, what are you going to do? It's like, are you going to show it? And she goes, well, yes, we're going to show Chris. And she goes, we're not going to advertise Chris. We'll never advertise Chris. She goes, you can't, not after what he did. She goes, but he had a long history in this business, and to sit there and edit out every single moment that he was ever a part of, ever. It was like, she goes, that is too taxing. That's too much. That's like too costly.
You also started racing important parts of history, like Randy Orton's
That's the
first
other part
title
of it,
win, and
that's the other thing. She goes, there are ways you can get around it. There are ways you can tell the story without highlighting him, but there's certain things that happened in the company's history that cannot go forward without just showing it as it happened, archiving it. Chris Benoit was there. And this happened. It was before he did what he did. And everybody that has ever known Chris said that he was not that guy. I mean, and that's easy to say now. That's easy to say, well, he was never that guy, never expected it. Sometimes those are the people who are like the most gone. But then it's all the research and all the stuff that was done later by Chris Nowinski's organization that analyzed his brain and showed that he was not right, and he had a lot of things wrong. All the concussions, that hard hitting style that I love so much, hurt him and hurt his family.
Man, there was one bump that Chris Benoit took at WrestleMania 21 during the first ever Money in the Bank ladder match. He went for a diving headbutt and missed, but when he missed, he like landed wrong on his arm. And you can actually watch him like shake his arm because he realizes he's lost all feeling in one of his arms during the match. That is one of the most, for me at least, that's one of the most unforgettable bumps that he took. That was like an unsuccessful thing that really probably definitely shouldn't have happened.
And I guarantee you they think of cases like his when they won't allow Daniel Bryan to wrestle again.
Yeah.
Even though all the signs are that Daniel Bryan's cleared and he's safe, he's in by now, with him not having wrestled for as long as he hasn't wrestled and how much he's healed, it's like he's never had a concussion. But they like, man, what if we let him back in there and he takes another bump wrong and he gets hurt? What if he goes crazy later on? What if he snaps?
That's on us now.
Himself? And then it's like, I kind of get it. I feel for Daniel because he doesn't want to end his career that way. I know he doesn't. But Chris, for as much good as he brought this business, that's probably in the most darkest of ways to say it, the best thing that he ever brought was to make things a little like safer.
Then that's a dark way to look at everything. With when Dale Earnhardt died in racing. Yeah. His death, as sad as that was, which was fucking tragic, like they created the Hans device to make people more safe. So now when you're getting in an accident, you don't have head trauma or anything like that can, in a split second kill you. So You're right. It is fucked up and totally tragic that had to happen, but it is definitely making the future of the very, very unpredictable industry of professional wrestling safer in some regard.
Yes, sir. And I don't really have much else to say in regards to Chris. For a long time, it was difficult to go back and watch some of his stuff.
Yeah,
because you have the lingering, you have the lingering, and you have like, because it's completely unforgivable. And that's the other part that's so fucked up about it, is because you hear so much about how much he loved and took care of his kid. And he was kind of an awkward guy, but man, he loved his kid. And he fucking did that to him. And it's like, I can't even fathom that. I can never fathom that. And it's something that you can't put yourself in his shoes, because to me, that is a logically impossible place to put myself.
Correct.
And it's he is the single greatest wrestling tragedy, in my opinion. And there are a few, definitely a few that we'll probably talk about as we continue to do this segment.
Well, dude, that was your pick, right? You put Chris on the list.
I did.
So you got to replace Chris off of our list now, bro. You can see who's on the list right now. I don't see the list.
All right, so let me say who's on the list right here, because I didn't say who was on the list before I picked the name. And I kind of want to do that just so that way I'm not like, we don't pick this out as this is genuinely, trust us, this is on a randomizer. It's on miniwebtool.com/random name picker. That's where it is. And you enter the names, one per line, and it picks one. So on the list is Ric Flair. Come on, you can't have a list without Ric Flair on it. CM Punk, Scott Hall, Chris Jericho, Sting, The Ultimate Warrior, Edge, John Cena, Chris Benoit, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. And last week we talked about Bret Hart. This week we talked about, or last episode, I keep saying last week like this is a weekly show, like we do this. No, 2 weeks ago we talked about Bret. This week we talked about Chris. Shoot, man. I'm going to talk about Magnum TA.
Ooh, that's a hardcore one to talk about.
You know what? I thought it'd be really easy to put somebody like Eddie here, because we mentioned him in brief.
Yeah.
We talked about wrestling tragedies. You could easily talk about Owen, and the tragedy of his death. But I kind of wanted to get away from that. Chris is heavy. Chris Benoit is a heavy hitter.
Need a couple weeks of some lighter shit.
Yeah, let's get some lighter stuff going on here, because it's really going to suck, because if we get the Ultimate Warrior next week or next episode, I'm going to be upset, because we're going to go from a downer to a downer with how we lost Warrior just a few years ago. But I've always enjoyed Magnum, and Magnum is yet kind of another wrestling tragedy. Of course, he didn't lose his life, but he definitely lost his career.
Yeah,
and I can't wait to talk about Magnum and what could have been, and what he was. He was a really good in-ring talent, and probably would have been one of the biggest stars in the history of the business had things have not ended the way they did for him.
Awesome. All right, Brando. Well, how about you send us home, my friend?
Well, you know what? Thank you guys for checking us out this week here on Journey to Wrestling. You can catch us every other Wednesday right here on the Journey to Comics Network at journeyintocomics.com. You can also find the feed on some of your favorite podcast services, such as iTunes or on Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music. You can check us out on Podchaser, check us out on Podcast Addict, anywhere where you can search podcasts, RSS feeds, and iTunes feeds. We're there, pal. All you got to do is search it, and we're there. You'll find all of our great shows we have to offer here on the network, and they're all right there for the picking. And, of course, you can find Journey to Wrestling on Facebook. We post there sometimes. Twitter, not as often. We have it, though. That is JIW on JIC. And we don't have an Instagram or any of the other stuff. We don't. Trust me, I would love to, but we already have so much social media stuff to keep up with for all the other stuff that we do.
Too many.
That is literally too taxing on me at this point to just I can't even do the damn Twitter. I made the damn thing, and I've really rarely even used it. I try to share the episodes when possible, but the best thing for you guys to do is to just subscribe on your favorite service, and you'll get the new episodes as they come out. As we said, every other Wednesday adjacent with Foodies Watching Movies. If you don't get Foodies, you're getting wrestling, and hopefully on time. Unlike this week, it's going up super late on Wednesday, but it'll still be there. If you're tuning in on Thursday morning, we're here along with Podcastrophy this morning. So thank you guys for checking out this episode of Journey to Wrestling. Until next time, we're going to be looking at the Survivor Series Go Home and all the storylines going into that show, as well as we're going to touch on the NXT show coming up before that and looking at that as well to talk about War Games. So Nate, Until then, I'm Brando.
I'm Nate.
And we will see you next time, brother.
New World Order.